Welcome everybody to Punch Kick Choke Chat. We're gonna have a short. If you watch the short that Sense Legacy and I did about Matsumura, we're gonna crack open Itosu, not literally, crack open his history and talk about him a little bit today. And I love doing these talks with Sense Legacy, one-on-one, just because we've trained so much together and our thinking is so aligned on most of this stuff. And I love riffing with Sense Legacy back and forth about these things. So how you doing today, Sensei?
Always good.
All is
Well and
good.
alive. Yeah.
And so the topic today, I asked Sense Legacy which topic he'd like to talk about, and he chose Itosu Yatsune, who is a student of Matsumura's, and we're going to get into why was Itosu different and what are some of the most important things about Itosu Yatsune. So, Sensei, what are your initial thoughts on him, or what are some things you want to share right off the hop with people about him and why he was important or different?
Well, he was born in 1830 and he died in 1915. Um, he was a Meijin master. And the thing that's really different about him was that he lived, his name was Ankō. His nickname was Iron Horse. A lot of us like that name. It sort of represents him very well. The thing that was unique about him is he lived in the year where you could kill somebody when you were defending your life. And imagine how many of today's martial artists, if they were confronted with somebody taking their lives, how many of them would be able to actually do it? There is my sense between uh, parlor house karate and karate jutsu. In other words, in a sense, karate do, which is fine, which is more like, in my opinion, a little bit like a schoolyard fight, as opposed to a fight for your life somewhere in some shady place, right? So the people who train have had a different mind. Their mind wasn't just, well, I'll get through this fight. I just have to punch him in the chest and hurt him a little bit, or somebody who's trying to take your life. So, uh, and one of my black belts descriptions, they said Matsumura built the car and Itosu drove it. Speaking of the styles, like Matsumura invented the Shorin style, but Itosu is the guy who took it to the streets and actually proven that Shorin was the best of its time. And I also believe it is still the best for immediate self-defense, no weapons, etc.
You will.
Itosu was a Meijin master, and at the age of 7 years old, his father tied him to a post. He left like a 2 foot loose, uh, so he could run around the post. And he took a 6 foot staff and started hitting with it and poking at him with it. And if he tried to retreat to get away, as he went around the post, the rope got shorter. So then he was forced to defend himself. And his father would not stop poking at him until he got, with rage, until he got pissed off and started to swing back and try to grab the stick from his dad. At that time, he would quit, right? If he started to cry, he'd just keep beating him with the stick. I mean, that was a harsh lesson, but it led to him being one of the greatest martial artists of all time.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
He was also a rich guy, right? And he was also, I mean, in
He
his
was a
youth,
school teacher. Yeah.
well, he became a school teacher, but he was related to the royalty. So he was,
Well,
as far as killing people, he didn't get in trouble for it, even if he did, because of
yeah.
his position with the court. Um, the thing I also like about Itosu Sensei is something that you've always said, that you would always take the smartest martial artist. Always, that would be the first thing you would be looking for. And he is a highly educated martial artist. He went to school, he learned the Chinese classics, he could read, he could write, which a lot of people couldn't do at that time. And, he actually worked for the royalty. I think that's how he got his association with Matsumura, is because he was kind of a distant relative of the royalty and working for them doing translations. Um, yeah. Any of the stories about Itosu that you like in particular, Sensei? Like, I mean, you talked about the one.
First of all, I just wanted to tell you how he got introduced to, and he was from the Shizaku. The Shizaku is a more of a local um, royalty, you know what I mean, as opposed to the shogun or the king or something like that. So when he was he was 16, he brought up to Matsumura and asked Matsumura if he would take his son as a deshi, which is an apprentice. And Matsumura said, there was mention. He said, "There's something about you that I like. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but." So he accepted Itosu as his apprentice. Um, the thing about Itosu also is that uh, in his life further down the road, he learned the white crane. He became really well known for being really strong and having a good grip. A guy attacked him one time and he grabbed him punched him in the back. He reached around, grabbed him by the wrist, and he was on his way to breakfast. So he didn't even look at the guy. He just walked straight to the restaurant or wherever he's going for his breakfast and hung on to the guy. And he sat down and he wheeled him around and threw him in the chair in front of him and told him, you should be careful of what you're doing in the street. You could, an old guy like me, you could have hurt me, But he was a martial artist, so he could withstand a blow. But that was the difference between him and Funakoshi. Funakoshi, when Matsumura was teaching him as his student, he taught him the family white crane. And a lot of people don't believe in that, but Funakoshi is the father of modern day karate because he left. And it's of modern day karate, not of karate. Right, because he left, went to Japan, and then the modern day karate started in Japan. And he actually taught Shorin-ryu, but the Japanese changed it to Pine Wave or Shotokan, right? And as you can see in Shotokan or Shotokan practitioners, once you get to a fourth dan, your kata cease. Your program is done. Yes, you can mix other things in, you can do other things, but in Shorin-ryu, we have the crane after that. And by that time, normally you're a bit more mature and it requires less physical application, but to be more accurate. It's a nerve destroying martial art where, as like when people get in car accidents and their nerves are severed, it leaves them in a wheelchair or not being able to use a certain limb, etc. So Itosu knew that, and through those crane exercises, and that's why he could grip that guy. They say he could crush bamboo, and he became. And the word was, Itosu does not teach the same martial art that he practices. So, and that's where, which I believe was a big mistake. That's where Funakoshi went to Japan because Matsumura would not teach him the crane. He was the guy who, in the stories, there was always this guy sneaking peeks through the fence. But when that happened, Matsumura would stop teaching Itosu because it was a family secret that he didn't want anybody else to. So as far as fighting, driving the car, you can jump in here anytime you want.
Yeah, I just was gonna say about the white crane sensei. The one thing I've always thought about when he fought Tomoyoshi at the Challenge Rock, when he went there and slapped that rock, and how they say, well, actually, it was Master Kim who said he broke his arm with a shudo. But you know, I think of the literal word shuto uke, like knife hand, and then I start thinking about White Crane and thinking, well, if he grabbed and like even like some of the moves that we do would be considered a knife, like you would describe them as a knife hand, but in my mind, I'm like, he broke his arm with a knife, like a shuto uke, but maybe not like a striking shuto uke, maybe a knife hand crane type of shuto uke.
Well, I'm going to tell you that story after, or I guess I could tell you, is there was a snap. According to Master Kim, there was a snap in the Shudo. I know what you're talking about. A lot of people would not understand what you're saying. But I do believe it was a Shudo. He left his arm dangling at his side. Uh, okay, when he was 24, he decided to go to Naha at a festival there. And while he was walking along, there was a big commotion going on. And what happened is one of the bulls, one of the prize bulls, had broken loose. It came running down the street. People were fleeing, jumping walls, fences, trying to get out of its way. And Itosu walked right straight towards it. And when it got close to him, he just sidestepped it and started to run along beside it. He reached over the top, grabbed it by the horns, and twisted its neck upwards. It's and until the bull lost its balance, it fell down, and then he laid down beside it, hanging onto the horns until they tied the bull's feet so it couldn't move anymore. So you just imagine, an Okinawan who's somewhere under 5 feet, you weighed 120 pounds, having that much power to hold a
It,
beast stuff like that.
it was probably, to be honest, I'd say, you know, it was probably an Okinawan bull too, though, right? But
Yeah, but
still, I wouldn't even try it, but
yeah, it
just
was
it,
not a Braemar bull. That's
right.
for sure.
Yeah. You know, Sensei, I know you have some notes written there, but one thing I wouldn't mind talking about is just I think how Itosu, and unless this is in your notes, one of the things I really like about him is that while he did traditional karate, he broke with a lot of the trends, and I think that's why we know karate today, is because he was a guy who said, "No, I'm going to teach anybody. I'm going to teach grade school kids. I'm going to teach anybody who comes. You don't have to have a crazy letter of introduction. You don't have to stand in the sun, in the rain. I'm going to teach all kinds of people." Because I think he had the vision of getting, he's the one who had the vision of getting karate on the stage with judo and kendo and all those other arts that were becoming prolific.
Yeah, well, actually, like I said, he was a teacher, and he was the guy who got it into elementary school. The elementary school in Okinawa was people who were up to 20 years old. It's was a little bit different than now. So it was in a letter that he wrote. Some people say different things, but from Richard Kim, I understand that um, well, Itosu decided to got it into the schools. He had written a letter to Matsumura stating that um, he had put uh, Shorin-ryu, the way of the Shaolin Temple or Shaolin Zoo, into the martial arts school, and he wanted him to know about it because he was proud of doing that. And Matsumura saw that written in the letter, the way of the Shaolin Temple, Shaolin Zoo, or Shorin-ryu, and I believe that's where he got the idea to call the style Shorin-ryu, the way of the Shaolin Temple, or China Hand, which later on became karate, which was then empty hand. So yes, Itosu had a lot to do with.
In that new book that just came out, that it's a big book. I know you have it, I have it. And
Yes,
one of the things that I liked about that book is just how connected Itosu was to people like Jigoro Kano. And, you know, going back to your point about he didn't train the karate that he taught. And that book, it becomes really clear that he was actually teaching kind of like in the school system, the pinyan katas that he was teaching was really like more like for physical education and not for self-defense. But then he was hoping that that would be a bridge for them to get into karate after they were done school and actually start training it. And I think that worked to some extent for a lot of people, especially when, you know, Hancho Chomo and Yabu Kentsu showed up in the military who had started like, and they were like, why do you look like that? They're like, we do karate. We do, oh, well, can you teach other people? How long would it take? Could you teach them in 3 months? No, like 5 or 10 years is what it's going to take. The other thing in that book that I found interesting is that there were 5 pinyan katas that he put together from the higher katas, and he designed those katas. They only actually learned one kata each year because there was only 5 grades in elementary school then in Okinawa. So you learned Pinyan Shodan in grade 1 in phys ed class. And then you learned Pinyan Nidan in grade 2 in phys ed class. And by the time you were done 5 years of school, you had learned 5 Pinyan katas.
Yeah. And the 59 kata was a black belt level kata. Actually, there are no colored belt katas. They're all black belt katas. It's just how efficient you are at it. That's why you get a yellow belt. But the katas, everything you're taught in martial arts is a black belt level kata. I'm a higher ranking Dan. I still do Pinan Shodan, Pinan Nidan. Yeah.
I just did them 15, 20 minutes ago. I just did the
Yeah.
Pinyan katas. Yeah. I love them, but that's another interesting thing is in that book, Itosu said, which kind of makes you think about the pinyan katas as exercises for people to learn. He said, if you know Kusenku, why would you do the pinyan katas? Why wouldn't you train Kusenku more? That's his words in the book. Like that's what he said,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, the higher cutters are made up of the smaller cutters. All the moves are in, and then some.
Right.
You know, it's good to isolate certain moves, like in Pinan Godan and Pinan or Pinan Nidan, which is very, very sort of simple, but the basis of everything. Another another thing, we'll just skip the Tomiyoshi fight, Ikakishi, if you want, depending on the time.
We got
But
5 minutes, Sensei. We got five
his
minutes.
okay, Itosu's greatest fight was when he was 75 years old. He changed the course of martial arts. When he was 75, the Japanese challenged karate with judo, and their champion was a policeman. And Itosu didn't want to send somebody who was inexperienced, so he decided to go himself. He was 75 years old. And when they got there, um, I'd like to read to you Richard Kim, who was my teacher in The Weaponless Warrior, page 56, if you have it. He was a genius, Sensei Kim, and he was like a historian. And in his book, this is what he writes about the fight. The crowd's unrest grew to indignation. They were outraged at what seemed to be an insult to their judo expert. His victory would lose all its meaning if he merely beat an old man. For this reason, the fight was almost postponed, and indeed would have been if it weren't for 75-year-old Itosu's tremendous reputation. It was with reservations, however, that the judo expert entered the ring. He circled Itosu, half clowning in order to save some face, while the old man calmly pivoted and kept his eyes on him. Itosu was so completely relaxed that he looked somewhat ridiculous, even to his own students. Suddenly, the policeman lunged forward, grasped Itosu by the sleeve and collar. But in a flicker, the crowd was astonished to see the policeman slump to the ground. Itosu had driven his left fist deep into the young man's solar plexus. accompanied by the loud, curt ki. The young man lay gasping for breath at his feet. That changed the course of karate. Just imagine if the judo guy had beat the karate guy. We would, there's nothing wrong with judo. That's what I want to say. Judo is a good martial art. But at that time, had the judo guy defeated karate, karate would have been something quaint, for visitors to the island of Okinawa. But it opened the Japanese eyes that karate was a superior, if not an equal, martial art. And so then they started to accept it at the Bidokuden, and it is now worldwide. Right.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the reason, Sensei, why Jigoro Kano said we want somebody to come here to Japan and start. It was after Itosu did that Kano Sensei said, okay, we need to learn more about this, because he was the guy who was trying to like start the Butokuden and get all this thing going of all these different martial arts. And he was the one who saw that and said, we need karate teachers now in Japan.
yeah, yeah. But had he lost that fight, it would have
That would,
just, yeah. In
that,
in my book, I wrote a book, and at the back of it, I call it the most powerful punch of all time. If he hadn't hit him with that one single punch at the age of 75 years old, in front of all the Japanese, oh, there it is, yeah, all the Japanese experts will say things would have went completely different. That's one of the reasons he is so important. And the other reasons are he took karate jitsu and proved it on the street. It wasn't just in a dojo or schoolhouse. It was defeating people in the street. Because in those days, people, when they robbed you, they killed you. It was the life-saving karate.
yeah. Also interesting about Itosu is before him, there was maybe 4 or 5 katas in the system. And then after him, there was like 10 or 16 katas, because he invented all those pinyan katas. He invented Tunahanshi katas. He brought in Pasai Sho, brought in Kusenku Dai, or sorry, Kusenku Sho.
Yeah.
And then there was so much more breadth of information for people to train after him.
He is that bridge. Like Matsumura put the styles together. Karate Sakugawa started the karate, but it was Matsumura started the styles. He started putting things together and building styles, right? So, and then after that, Itosu put it on his shoulders and went out and proved that karate was worthwhile taking. Put it into elementary schools, fought in the street. He proved it. He made karate what it is today, karate jitsu. And then when Koshi separated from Okinawa and went over there, he started karate do, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think that's an opinion. That's a fact. Like, that's why they call Funakoshi the father of modern day karate, because he's the one who did all that. But sadly, since 20 minutes has already gone by, these shorts, we'll do another one. I really like doing these shorts with you. And I know that people are going to enjoy this. We're trying to do more of these. So you also might see, Sense Legacy and Sense Suino, or Sean Benson with Sense Legacy, because we're going to try and mix it up and have just different dynamics of people doing these little shorts. So I just want to say thank you, Sensei, for your time tonight. It was really good discussion. And if you're watching this, you won't be watching it live because we didn't do it live. But when you're watching this, you'll be watching it because Sense Legacy, Sense Sereno, or I, or all of us are somewhere doing some other thing and we can't do the show. So we like to air these for people so they can get something. if you're watching it and you can help us, you can just help us by hitting like or subscribe or sharing it out to somebody and saying, hey, this is interesting. And then you'll be helping us. But more importantly, I think you'd be helping the martial arts community. So thanks so much, Sensei, for tonight. And we'll talk again soon for sure.
My pleasure, of course.